Welcome to Squirrel Trails. I'm David.
And I'm Al.
Today we're going to be going more details about yesterday's video. If you haven't watched it, please go watch it first, then come back here and watch it. And don't forget to give that one a thumbs up because it was kind of good. So, what are we talking about today?
So we're doing a follow-up, obviously, on that one. That is, basically, what is FISA? David, as you know, has a tendency to go down rabbit holes, and this was the one that he chose to go down.
Yep, big old squirrel hole. So we're going to be going over the government's PP.
And just so you're aware, that's his new acronym for privacy policy.
So how big is the government's PP?
It's... okay. Okay. So... The government has a lot of
PPs?
This is going to be a long show. Sorry, folks. Thought I raised him better than I did. But the government has a lot of...
We're a military family, so acronyms are great.
So, they're... where was I going? So anyway, in this one, we're going to be talking about the rules around the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act.
Which is a great acronym for that would be FISA.
FISA, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. You want to speak an acronym. So within this, what we've got, or what the government's got, is essentially a promise or an expectation of how they're going to collect data in the use of foreign surveillance.
And it's because of data that we're talking about it.
Yes, because that's all I really care about in life is data. That's unfortunately true. A statement never said. Nobody tell my dance instructor. So the...
or your wife.
Good point.
You're worried about your dance instructor. I'm worried about mom.
She lived with me 38 years. She gets it.
She likes data too.
And she, yes, she is at the dance classes as well.
So is data.
So is the data. Lord have mercy. I'm hoping he's going to trim some of this. I really do.
Nope.
Because
No,
there's
not yet.
about 3 of you that will probably get all this. So, actually, you know, FISA became a very big deal in right after about 2002, 2003, 2004, right after Snowden had came out and notified or leaked out to everybody how much information the government's been collecting.
Because no one realized how much.
Nobody really realized it. I mean,
Again, no one reads privacy statements.
Yes. No. Well, in this case, it's a law. So
no one reads laws, privacy statements. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing.
Well, I know somebody that does for fun.
I'm the only one.
Yes. So.
And the channel is still coming.
Promises. Although I don't know if that's a threat or a promise.
You're right.
So the.
So hopefully we'll get more serious now that we're going to be talking about what we've.
I don't know.
we'll try to get more serious. So, and again, this isn't our background. We're not lawyers.
You stretch the imagination.
So this is kind of going off what we've read, looked into over the past couple days.
And these are clearly our personal opinions on this. And we're not going to try to get any kind of political aspects of this because this topic has been way over politicized.
Yes,
it really has. So we're just going to try to focus on. I'm not going to say just what are the facts, although I am old enough to go back to that show. But just to kind of put some premise around this. Yeah, what do the rules say?
So kind of by the book, kind of solely by the book.
Solely by the book.
So there will be no slant.
Working on it, right.
Try to.
That being said, of course, we all understand that nobody ever approaches anything personally.
Very true. Yeah.
We all have a slant, and that was David to shut up. So,
Yes.
All right.
Shut up. Let's get to it.
Okay. All right. So, FISA, how long has it been around? It's been around. Yeah, I know. You're supposed to ask the questions.
So it's been around since 1977.
Hey, very good. You were paying attention to the prep. Yay! So it was actually signed into law by Jimmy Carter. It came out of, again, another problem in which people found out how much information the government was collecting. In this case, it was all the CIA stuff that came out of the Nixon administration and administrations before, to be honest. Been doing it for a very long time.
Sure.
So FISA came out and was created to actually create some rule sets as to what can be connected and what can be collected and what can't be collected, and what requires warrants and what doesn't.
And stay tuned to the end, or you can just scroll all the way there. I'm going to put up some of the rules that we've kind of what's out there, bullet points on there. Got a little slideshow at the very end, just so you can see it for yourself, or you can click the link down below that will go directly to Wikipedia's page.
And that'll be kind of our wrap-up of show what David's learned in this process.
Yeah.
So, and we should do that on all the shows. What has David learned in this show?
You know.
Oh, no, that's stealing it from a show I watch.
Yeah.
I listen to. So, yeah, okay. But it would work. So.
What did David learn?
Yes.
Sorry, Sam.
Okay. So 1970, introduced in 1977, signed into law, and by Jimmy Carter, to provide oversight of what can be collected. Now, it doesn't mean that we were going to stop collecting it. That's the interesting piece. We were just going to have some oversight to
so
this.
we're going to continue doing what we're doing. We're just going to now have some oversight of what we're doing.
Right.
So, have been doing.
So it starts in basically, it allows for some, not kidding, warrantless domestic wiretapping. That's how it was built for. And it was done with the expectation there, because it's warrantless, there's no court order to do that. And it was something that was felt to be needed by the federal government in doing the National Security Agency and others to do investigations of foreign intelligence sources. Okay. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of bad nation states out there trying to do things to us.
Yep.
And so we have to have a means to do that. So you are going to collect that data, and there's times that you need to do it fairly quickly.
True.
So
timing
you need
is sometimes key.
Right.
So even though we don't like it, sometimes it is what it is.
So the code actually says that, and I'm going to pull it right out of here, is that that the president authorizes through the attorney general that they can collect without a court order for a period of 1 year to collect that data, but it's only to acquire foreign intelligence information solely directed to communication or property controlled by foreign powers. So it has to be tied to a foreign government initially, where they're going into that play.
Does Wikipedia actually have what's exactly the rules, right?
Yeah. Well, it's
because what did it say 1 year after?
Yes, you're able to collect that for a period of 1 year. So when you start collecting it, and it starts, you can do that for a year.
A year from,
when you start that process, when the president or the attorney general, generally the attorney general or somebody working for him,
sure,
I don't know, potentially some noob down in the bottom of the basement someplace.
Yeah, right.
Let's be honest.
Agent Mueller.
Yes.
Or
Don't
Sully,
I wish?
Or Sully.
I would like those two. It might be Agent Smart. So they're able to authorize that for a period of a year.
Okay.
So
per event or per person?
Per request.
Okay.
Per start. So yes. So if they say to do something, you can do it for a year.
Okay. And then when the year's up,
you could potentially reauthorize it. Yeah.
So it's a warrant. Okay. So just clarifying.
Okay, let's go back. Because it's warrantless, it doesn't require a court.
Sure. So,
but it does require authorization.
So after the year is up, they just have to go back and ask.
They could potentially be reauthorized.
Okay.
Now, to be very clear, this is what we're talking about here is as it was set up to run.
Yes.
There's been significant amendments.
We'll get there. We'll get to the changes down the road. But first, this is kind of when it just started, right?
All right. Okay. So
I'll ask harder questions then.
I'm about to say, and what you may need to do is when you're doing this is to put on the notes at the bottom kind of the time breaks,
sure,
key points, so that people can not have to listen to all the chatter.
Sure.
So,
That's a good idea. So if you want to go back to key points, down below, there'll be time frames
right. So
for each bullet point.
So a key component of this, though, when I look at it, is that now this is interesting. This is two interesting pieces. What is a U.S. person? What would you think a U.S. person is?
A United States citizen.
Nope. It includes citizens, but also lawfully admitted permanent resident aliens and corporations incorporated inside the United States.
So any businesses in the United States,
right?
They're incorporated.
Right, incorporated. So
if they're not incorporated?
It's a Chinese company incorporated in China doing business in the United States. They ain't covered.
Okay. Then
they're not protected.
They're not protected. So it's citizens?
Citizens.
And people that are trying to become citizens or becoming citizens, right?
No, they could actually be illegal. They could be foreign nationals in country legally.
Legal, yep.
Whether they choose to become, whether they're on a citizenship pass or not.
Sure. Right. Like just kind of a foreign state should.
Yeah, I know several friends of mine from Canada and France and other places that are just choosing to live in the United States.
The green card's kind of a...
Yeah, green card people would be, you'd think of that.
Okay, so but someone that comes here illegally is not covered.
Correct.
Perfect, okay. Well, this is back then.
This is back then, and I haven't seen any change on that one in particular.
Okay.
So, but they have to have what's called minimalization procedures, which is how do I minimize the likelihood, because there's an expectation that other stuff's going to get picked up, because you're doing investigations.
Sure.
So, and I thought I was a cynic in the family. People know that they're going to collect information, so they want to minimize the likelihood of impacting U.S. persons as there. And those are they're not allowed to. They're not allowed to hold the data for more than 72 hours when they keep it, unless there's evidence of a crime. So there's supposed to be a very short time period. So if I'm collecting something and there's a U.S. citizen attached, because let's be honest, foreign countries in the United States, talk to people in the U.S. all the time.
All the time.
So they're going to collect conversations and such dealing with citizens. That's just the nature of the beast. Can't be prevented.
Okay.
But it can be minimalized, and that's what they're saying. So if you had a conversation with somebody that is a U.S. person, they can only hold it for 72 hours, and then they have to get rid of it.
Okay.
Also has to be essentially anonymized. So it is not per se anonymized. It has to be masked.
Okay.
So that somebody looking at the record won't know that it was John Smith, but instead person A or whatever, however they're using to do that.
Sure.
Now the other piece to that, though, is that the Attorney General can cause that to be unmasked. Again, I'll stay out of the politics of that, but somebody can actually cause that to be unmasked, because, if there's a crime, you need to figure out who that person was. I can't.
So, or once the data is being used, then we can unmask it.
Right, but that takes an authorization.
Authorization.
Right. And the Attorney General is required to make certify that they're following all the rules and that they are, and he has to report that to Congress.
Okay.
So there's actually a lot of things that they are supposed to be doing to keep it protected, because they know it can be misused.
Sure. Yes.
And that's the reason it got started, because it was being misused.
Misused.
Now, if the government gets an actual warrant, that's a little broader.
Okay.
And that's you have heard the terms about the FISA courts?
Yes.
Okay. So in the case of the FISA court, if the Department of Justice or another investigative arm has probable cause that the target of surveillance of a foreign power, I'm going to start that one all over again.
Okay.
So one of the key aspects that I really didn't bring out earlier is that in the initial portion of the FISA Act, it was really directed where there was at locations that were essentially overseas, or that were properties that were controlled by the foreign entity.
Okay.
So
That's kind of why I talked about the foreign, government businesses.
yes. So
So citizens,
right.
foreign nationals, and businesses.
Right. So the key part to that, though, was it was really directed to say, you're going to be doing this work overseas or at locations that are owned by
Yep.
a foreign state.
Okay.
And that's, so embassies, that kind of stuff. So you think about it, that's what spying's all about. So,
Yes.
as opposed to domestic crime investigations, which are all generally domestic.
Yes.
Meaning inside the United States, not inside somebody's house. Sorry. Make that clear. However, with a court order, then the rules get a little broader.
Okay.
So this is where you go to the FISA court, where you can, if there is a probable cause that the target of the surveillance is going to be a foreign power or an agent of the foreign power, and the place at which the surveillance is used or will be used by the foreign power, not owned by, but used by, then they can get a warrant to actually do that investigation. And they do, to your previous point, they do require periodic renewals based upon the type of investigation that are there.
Sure.
But the surveillance is there for, at least according to what Wikipedia is telling me, is active for 90 days, 120 days, or a year. Boy, it'd be interesting to know how many of them are not a year.
Yeah.
Just having gone to get permission before for things, you kind of want to get as much as you can.
Sure.
Okay.
So that was what we talked about so far is from 1977.
Yeah, that was 1977 up to
the original use for FISA.
Right.
Okay. So it is not 1977. Last time I checked.
Don't I wish? Still be in college, drinking beer.
And
drinking beer.
So what has changed? What has changed since then?
Okay, so there have been quite a few changes for this. Well, first of all, we've had a major terrorist attack.
True.
And that's what caused a lot of this to come into play. So suddenly, non-state actors became a very big deal.
Okay.
So initially, starting in 2004, it was an amendment was made for lone wolves. In other words, individuals that could be foreign individuals that can be operating by themselves,
okay,
or as a group, not as a part of a foreign state.
Okay, so they're just part of their own organization.
Yes.
Versus a state.
Right.
Or a country.
So, yeah, and this is so we get into that concept of terrorists and or bad guys of any type.
Really quick.
Yep.
A foreign state.
Yes.
Shouldn't it be called like a foreign country? Because I don't think any other country uses states.
Yes, they do.
Really?
Yeah, they do actually. You go into some other countries, they have state systems, not like what we have in the United States, but they have provinces or something that are called states. But I would not normally think of Wisconsin as a foreign state.
No, but I wouldn't think of like Russia as a foreign state.
Why? It's
a foreign country.
Okay. We're now on a squirrel trail concept, but let's just go to the fact that when we think of the term states in a global sense, states are organizations of around an area.
Is it spelled differently?
No, it's not spelled any differently. You're going to drive me nuts. I can see it's coming already. So
sorry, and I apologize about this this squirrel trail, but it just one thing it's always been bugging me. So I just better to ask you here on the camera.
Okay. And you asked a guy that wasn't prepared to answer this. Thank you. It's like my job. Here, quick, talk about this topic. Okay. When at an international level, they're considered states. Each of the different countries are considered a state. Now, you could actually consider that, are they all countries or are they republics? Or are they, because they're under a lot of different titles for what is essentially a state or an entity. But that's what it is. It's an entity.
So
But yes,
state here is in the country, in the United States,
right.
are entities within a country.
Right, and so...
But usually when we think of foreign state, we don't think of a province in Russia.
Okay, so one of the things to remember... Oh, we are going way off track on this one. But one of the things to remember is that when states were formed,
Yep.
they were very independent. Under the Constitution, states had a lot of power in and of themselves. In fact, most states, the theory was that each state was almost its own little experiment.
Okay.
And
Sure.
to remember, when the United States, when the United States, it wasn't originally, it was a confederation of states. So
Yes. Okay. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Close enough.
Sorry for that, folks.
I'll accept that answer.
We will. Thank you.
Sorry.
If you'd paid more attention in high school, this wouldn't be a conversation.
No, that's why I had you.
So, and we'll put the time boxes around this so you know where to speed forward to.
Yes.
So, for that matter, you can go through and add your own comments as to where I'm wrong, which is because
Are your own definitions of what is a state?
Right, there we go. So,
Okay, so back on track.
So there have been a lot of conversations about FISA as to ongoing about whether it's constitutional or not.
Yeah.
And so, again, don't want to get into a lot of that, but there are a lot of questions because there's a lot of stuff, especially as we get into the amendments, as to where does that get impacted with the Fourth Amendment? Because we have the Fourth Amendment for illegal search and seizure, which means that you should be able to know that your stuff isn't going to be picked up just randomly and used.
Is this where things kind of get broad?
This is where things get a little broad. Yes.
And
so
a little broad is an understatement?
It could be.
Okay.
Well, and it's, yeah. Well, yes, this is where opportunities for misuse are introduced.
Okay.
I'll just put it that way.
Because they weren't getting misused back in 1977.
Well, okay.
The whole reason for it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. Laws are wonderful things. They really are. And in some organizations, they may be viewed as more of concepts.
Gray lines.
Gray lines. So this is one of those things to remember that
we're all humans.
We're all humans, and all are driven by our own different goals and desires, and so.
And who says we should be turned into robots?
Yeah. So. Okay, then that one you may have gone just a tad too far. You gotta quit watching those shows with the robots.
Thanks, Seth.
So, okay, so major change occurred started occurring in 2001 with the Patriot Act, obviously, as we started wanting to talk more about terrorists, and then the Protect America bill happened. In 2007, and that was followed by the FISA Amendments Act of 2008. Okay. All of these things basically worked up to say, hey, we're in a much more dangerous place, or at least that's the belief,
sure,
than we were before, so we need to have broader powers of collection.
Okay.
And that's what ended up happening here. So a series of amendments pulled together under Terrorist Surveillance Act, et cetera, running through there, but they all basically coalesced up into the Protect America Act in 2007, where, and I'm just going to pull it right out of this just because it's cleaner, is that really it was to ease the restrictions, to make it easier to collect data. Now, the reason for that, the focus on the ease of collecting data was for surveillance of terrorist suspects, where one party, or both parties maybe, but certainly at least one party is located overseas. So now we're getting into that, okay, if I have somebody that is overseas and I think they're a terrorist or some other form of a bad guy like that,
okay,
I should be able to collect that, surveil that communications.
The United States in
right.
some way or fashion.
Right.
We can surveil them. Okay.
So, very specifically, communications that begin, I'm going to read it right out of here. Communications that begin or end in a foreign country may be wiretapped by the United States government without, keyword, without supervision of the FISA court, which before they wouldn't have been able to.
Sure. Yes,
because that's where they needed a warrant.
They had to get authorization.
Right. Now they could do it without going to a...
They didn't need a warrant before. They just needed authorization.
No, they needed a warrant before.
Oh, because it was outside the country.
Right.
Yes.
And they needed to have... And they needed authorization to do it.
Yep.
And in a situation in which it wasn't going to be a foreign country itself or a foreign state. So that's where country and state become critical.
Okay.
Foreign state is the entity of Russia or Bulgaria or whatever it might be.
Yep.
Whereas the country is just the location.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, boy, we could have saved 10 minutes if I'd remembered that earlier. So, all right. So now, if that's the case, I don't have to get that warrant anymore. So it makes it a lot easier.
Okay.
Obviously, and to be honest, in some cases, speed is of the issue is critical in these things. So you need to do that. Now the government has to certify the legality of the acquisition program. That they're doing this in the right way. They've got to provide their own internal safeguards and those kinds of things to make sure that it's protected. Because you're giving the government a huge breadth of data collection, but that data collection is intended to be used by the intelligence agencies for the investigation of terrorist activities. So these are the key provisions of the Act coming into this thing. One, and it's nice as to start, that there are reasonable procedures in place for determining that the acquisition concerns persons reasonably believed to be located outside the United States.
Okay.
So, and if you think about electronic communications, reasonable believed is about all you can really do, because I can run things through all sorts of servers to get in here. So, absolutely.
You can ping it all over the world.
Right. So, that being said, there's probably a fair amount of people that are committing crimes inside the United States, hacking and such, that are actually routing stuff to other countries. So, so this could go either way.
Okay.
So there has to be reasonable belief that that person is outside of the country, not just using an outside service.
Not just pinging the router out. Okay. Right, Petras.
The acquisition does not constitute electronic surveillance, meaning that it does not involve solely domestic communications. And that's one of the key aspects. So it can't be, if you're using, if it's a person-to-person call inside the United States, so it's using our telephone systems or something, or email services within the United States, that's classified as electronic communications inside the U.S.,
Okay.
So they can't tap that.
Sure.
Now,
but if I use England's area code.
Right. Or you're calling somebody overseas, or, I don't know, maybe going to a foreign website.
Sure. Okay.
So I go to a site in England just about every day where I pull a lot of the material that we talk about.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you think about it,
you're on a list.
I'm on so many lists. I would think about that, folks, as think back to yourselves, how many websites that you go to that are outside the U.S.? You're probably going to be amazed.
Yeah.
So, scary thought.
Kind of is.
But to collect in it, they have to meet all 5 of these categories. Okay.
So not just one.
They can't be one. They got to meet all 5.
Okay.
Another one is the acquisition involves obtaining the communications from or with the assistance of a communication service provider who has access to the communication. In other words, I can't put my own tap on it.
Okay.
I have to go to the phone company. I have to go to the email provider. And this is where you get into where Google and others are been sued to collect data.
Yep.
Right, absolutely. So they go get that.
So this is that kind of the few years ago.
No, this is a few years ago where
government was trying to go after Apple to get in
and to force them to give them the data.
Yep.
Because they can't. that's what it is.
Okay.
A significant, this is the one that's a tad more interesting. A significant purpose of the acquisition is to obtain foreign intelligence information.
Significant.
Right. So that's not solely, which is what I thought was fun. I mean, and again, I look at words.
No words.
So
Significant is how?
significant is, that's a little squishy, but it's, obviously more than
more
half.
than 50%?
No, that's...
Or is it 75%?
Probably closer to 70. It's a qualitative word versus quantitative.
Quantitative should be in the law.
Well, then how do you measure that? How would you possibly measure that?
How do you measure significant?
Again, it's a qualitative term. It's squishy. That's why we have judges. Oh, yeah. I don't have to go to a court to get this.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right.
There's no judges in this. Okay. Again, significant in what?
So, anyway. Okay.
Okay.
Then we... the key point,
we'll
though...
move on.
Yeah, thank you, please, because we can spend the next hour on this. The next piece is that there has to be a minimization procedures that were outlined in the original FISA law. In other words, we have to make sure that we are trying to not pick up data from U.S. citizens if we can possibly avoid it. And if we do, it's protected, not retained, those kinds of things.
Okay.
And it's there. And again, similar to the previous law, they have to get rid of it if they collected it within 72 hours.
Sure.
All those kind of the rules within there.
Okay.
And the FISA courts are still there to collect data that falls outside of those boundaries.
Okay. So if it's
not as much as not that the boundaries are quite a bit broader, mind you, but that's still there.
The boundaries are kind of.
But it's there. So there are times that they do need to get a warrant to get information if there is, because they have to have a purpose,
yes,
that it's national intelligence. Sometimes they're not able to show that that's actually going to be the case, and prove that, because they have to have documentation, because in case somebody, goes back and gets after them about it.
Yeah.
The thing to remember is this isn't being done simply in a back room someplace without any oversight whatsoever. They do have to have documentation of when it's been done, why what demonstrated that substantive rule, those kinds of things.
Sure. Yep. So when this does eventually possibly go to court,
right,
there's a paper trail.
Yeah, and in point of fact, it has gone to court a few times. The U.S. has almost always won, but it has gone to court a few times. But there is a requirement that they have all this documentation and provide that, because at the end of the day, this is not supposed to be carte blanche. We're not supposed to be turned into the East German Stasi.
Sure.
So that's a key aspect of this, that there has to be that kind of oversight. And Congress has taken that oversight very seriously.
Sure, they have.
And drilled folks significantly. Now, when the bill happened in 2007, it was supposed to end...
Yes.
In 2017.
And so what happens now that is 2017?
Yeah, it got extended. Okay, just to cut to the chase. So, and there was a lot of heartburn about that, because this stuff's been coming out about misuse.
So this was supposed to end after.
Right. After it was supposed to run for 10 years, because the theory was all this terrorism concern would be reduced or be able to be worked into the normal course of laws by that time. Okay. That was the expectation.
Was it going to go back to the original 77?
Yeah, it'll go back to the original 77. Okay. Which is not great. At least it's pretty well structured.
Okay, yeah. Less
open for misuse.
Yeah.
And that's the case here. However, we're still dealing with terrorists, and in all honesty, this is kind of like, it's kind of like a tax. Nobody ever sees a tax go away. So nobody ever sees data collection processes stop.
When your rules stop ever.
Right. So
we create them, and then Yeah, I mean, there's still rules in here in Minnesota. I mean, you can't cross Wisconsin border, come from Wisconsin to Minnesota with a duck under your hat.
That's a myth. I researched that after one of our last shows.
Okay.
That's a myth.
Okay.
There are some equally stupid ones, but that one is a myth.
But they're interesting enough. Okay, but there are still dumb rules.
There are still dumb rules.
And they're haven't been expired.
Yes.
So this is, again, why
Right, but
things just stay out of the books.
the thing to remember with this one is that when Congress did this, they intentionally put an end date on it.
Yes.
They don't normally do that.
No.
They recognize that this really stretches the boundaries of the Fourth Amendment significantly.
Sure.
So they wanted that to stop after 10 years.
And this was with the getting more broad and all the changes.
Yeah.
Was that difficult to add to the original 77?
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was, to be honest, if we hadn't had a major terrorist attack on U.S. soil and fighting terrorist wars, probably wouldn't have happened.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because there wouldn't have seen it. Everybody that's in any investigative organization, private or government, wants to be able to collect more data.
Sure.
I mean, absolutely want to be able to collect more data. But there's a recognition that, hey, we have a constitution there for a reason.
Yep.
And that's where it's there. And in fact, generally, if you get caught collecting information you weren't authorized to have, you can't use that information or any of the other information you collected based on that information in court.
Okay.
So, and that's actually a straight up rule.
Well, I know for criminal court, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
But we're talking about the government here. I mean, again,
but
try not to add a slant, but we all overuse stuff.
We do, but they eventually have to take it to court in theory.
Because again, what brought on this topic was the article.
Yes. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
going
again,
all the way back.
Kind of go back to the original article, kind of to end off what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Is
So, good point. Let me loop all the way back. Well, not all the way back. Well, let's swoop back to 2007.
Yep.
We're only going to do this for 10 years because we recognize the problem. It's now 2017. 2016, 2017, it's going to expire.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. We still want to use it, collect all this data. What do? We need to get this extended. And it has been extended.
Is there a time length on it?
Yeah, there is a time length on that one.
Another 10 years?
I think it's another 10 years.
Okay. Kind of like tabs. You just repurchase them every 10 years.
Don't I wish tabs lasted 10 years. So in this situation, and it goes to the article. In the article, what was found, I'll be dead honest,
Yes.
Congressmen and the senators didn't trust the government.
True.
Who knew?
Who knew?
They're humans too. They don't trust the government. So
And government's run by humans. So yes.
Right. There we go. Yeah, it's kind of like the way I approach my job. I don't trust people. I trust individuals, but I can write rules for people. So that's the reason that's why internal audit works the way it works. Why I'm hated.
How do you know you're lied to? The bill was signed.
You bought the product. Yes. So there was a lot of conversation in 2016, 2017 about this as it was coming up and being fought.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to be honest, a lot of the senators and such did not want this to continue to have that that broad power being there.
A lot of the conversation around this.
So I remember it was Senator Windham had spent a lot of conversation on this one, a senator out of Oregon, and really drove a lot of those conversations. And the Department of the Director of National Intelligence, who oversees a lot of this stuff, was drilled extensively on this stuff. And David has listened to way too much video on this.
About 10 hours.
Yes, when he was supposed to be sleeping. So
Yes, I got a text at like 2 o'clock from my wife. Are you coming to bed yet?
No, I want to finish this last witness statement. So anyway, so you watched a lot of those videos.
Yep.
It was.
I rewatched them because again, back then I watched them live. So
again, work on your memory. But very specifically in those conversations, and we couldn't capture a direct audio link on this one.
I tried.
He tried. The FBI said, trust us, we're not going to misuse this. Because that's the biggest fear. The biggest fear of this wasn't that we were going to misuse it in investigation of foreign countries or terrorists or people overseas in crime. It was that it was going to be misused for U.S. persons.
U.S. citizens.
So there were a lot of
people.
Yeah, U.S. people, not just citizens.
Not
U.S.
just citizens, people. Yep.
Because the FBI was allowed to have access to this data. So.
And again, the word that we didn't like earlier.
Substantial.
Substantial.
So they put in, the FBI made significant rule sets that then they communicated these, that they were going to be following these rules, that they wouldn't misuse this data. And so did the other entities that were using this. And let's remember, the FBI isn't the only investigative arm within the government.
True.
You know, you've got, well, we won't go, the IRS comes to mind, but there's all sorts of other
ones. There's a lot
of
internal ones too.
Yeah, and a lot of internal ones. So, but the rule was that they had to maintain a record of how they were using that data and how often they were querying that data collection.
Sure.
Because it's a data store.
Yep.
And so you run queries against it and collect all sorts of stuff. And so it became, if you would, a very big data lake. And if those of us that think about Facebook and Twitter and all that data they collect, here's the same kind of a thing, but as related to individuals and communications for a variety of reasons.
Right,
but it's in theory, at least significantly used for foreign intelligence.
Sure.
Yeah. So we could go to all sorts of conversations on that.
So with that, I think it was a good point to wrap it up.
Well, let me make one point to that.
Sure.
Is that so the FBI did put in a lot of those rules in place. Well, or at least they said they did.
Okay.
And that's what the article we went into yesterday went into the fact that the CIA, the NSA could give very to the count, individual count, how many queries were run, how many times they used information from those queries in their investigations.
Yep.
How they used that data. So they followed the government's privacy policy,
So
if you would.
NSA and those two.
They were actually
follow the rules.
Or at least provided all the rules that they're supposed to have. Now the FBI, when this was coming in, it wasn't originally supposed to get the data. They fought to get access to the data because before they would have had to get warrants for it. Now, under the 2007, then it became warrantless. So the rule that the FBI had that allowed them to get to that data was, well, okay, if it's something that's for murder, a significant bodily harm.
Almost everything except for bank robbers.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, when we're looking at the reading, you look at what the FBI does.
Look at the list.
And,
It's everything except for the bank robbers.
Yes, the bank robbers weren't there. Although, if you think about it, if the money's going to be sent overseas, I could maybe take that tie too.
True.
But
and bodily harm.
Bodily harm. Yeah, good point. So, significant bodily harm. Way too many ums in this one.
Yes.
Just saying it out loud. It's a drinking game. I just did it again. my Toastmaster group is going to beat me. The thing that came out of this, though, was that the FBI said, well, we really can't tell you how much.
Yes.
And then went even better. And we can't tell you because if we told you, then that would be leaking classified information to Congress. And because then you could actually maybe see some data about investigations. None of that made any sense whatsoever.
No, it didn't.
Made no sense whatsoever.
Probably why I can't find it.
And that's what came out is they either they weren't keeping track of it, which would surprise me, but then again maybe not, or they just didn't want to provide the data. But what was found out is that, and this is where it does get, I'm just going to say maybe a little political in this one, is that sometimes you really can't trust the government to follow the rules and they're doing it in their mind for the very best of reasons.
Sure.
They have this massive amount of data. It's available to research crimes for. Of course you're going to do it.
Do we not trust them, or should we just understand that they're going to use it properly? Even though we should trust them. Can we not trust them? Trust them because
okay.
they have the data.
Right.
Okay, sure.
No, you can't. If we're going to be if we're going to have the protections of the Fourth Amendment,
Yep.
we can't trust them. That's the nature of the beast.
Sure.
It really is. And so this is where having warrantless searches, where you don't get judges involved, come into play. And that's what's happened here is that when you've been able to just grab that data on your own, they will, because it's available, no different than, I don't know, Facebook.
Sure.
So we would like to think the government has a higher sense of morality than Twitter and Facebook.
Okay. So,
on that happy note, yeah, I'm not getting a job in the government anymore. I can tell you that right now. And so much for that clearance I used to have.
You're right.
So, but what was essentially found is that the FBI had carte blanche access to that data.
Yeah.
Anybody could grab it within there. Didn't look to be that there were significant authorization processes to do that. In fact, they were grabbing it thousands of times a day. I mean, 6,000 times in one day that they counted for. There were...
How many employees they have? And that's one per employee?
Okay, they actually have more employees than that. But yeah. But this is where data collection becomes critical.
Sure.
So if you're watching something like, I don't know, maybe Criminal Minds or something, and you watch them doing all these wonderful data dives, let's think about how many of those data dives are actually legal. Yes. On that happy note.
So with that, if you stay tuned, thank you for sticking around this long. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to have long conversations.
we can do this for hours on any number of topics.
Well, heck yeah. So, and if you have any comments, go and put your thoughts down below.
And they could include be shorter.
Yeah. So with that, hope you enjoyed. Until next time, happy trails.
Happy trails.